All right, it always catches right as it starts to record. Welcome, everybody, and you're back on Witchful Thinking. If you normally listen or watch, you'll notice that it is just me, Brianna, hosting today. Nick's had some family stuff, and Autumn was a little exhausted and needed a break. So you've got me, and we've got a special guest. This is Kyle. Kyle, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, hi, obviously my name's Kyle. I'm a friend here. Um, just was invited to tag along and, have some fun, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. Kyle is part of the coven that we introduced you guys to in the in our first episode, the Moth Coven. So Kyle does do that with us. Like we said before, it is an online based coven for some of our friends that don't have access to a coven in their areas. So Kyle joins us from there. We also know him from a role playing server that we've all been a part of for quite some time. Um, anyway, let's get into it. Today we're going to talk about, we're going to kind of dive into what his practice is like, and we're going to get a perspective of witchcraft, a male perspective of witchcraft. So, Kyle, let's start by talking about like who do you work with, or do you work with anybody?
I mostly work with, and I kind of believe that Athena is kind of the patron of my family, and it was kind of an odd, wasn't aware of it, I guess, for a long time, and then you kind of put pieces together after talking to some others and things like that. There's just, and then too many things that couldn't possibly be coincidences, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
okay.
But a lot of my stuff is Athena, the goddess of wisdom, but a lot of people don't realize that she's also the goddess of crafts. And I do a lot of crocheting and things like that. And typically, I don't often do a lot of prayer things, but I'll make things and keep them in mind. So I have a little crochet holder here. It's a Greek amphora, holding my hooks and things like that. And one of my favorite little mementos, I collect ancient Greek and Roman coins, and I have from 440 BC tetradrachma
Oh,
of
I love
Athena
that.
there, and my favorite little owl on the back. There we go. Glare.
It's
It'll
all
focus
right.
eventually. But I uh, I like to read the stories and things like that. I even got my little book here is a little copy of my Latin book from high school and
And you know
college, and
Latin, don't you?
going over the stories. I do. I took
Proud of
4
you.
years of Latin. Not a lot of people to
No,
talk to,
Latin's a dead
but
language
I'm
for a reason.
you lose a letter grade if you bring that up. But I am taking an Italian cruise in July around the coast of Italy there for 12 days. I'm very excited because I'll actually be able to translate a few things there and be
That's
useful for a
awesome.
little
I
bit.
love that.
So,
So is and Athena is the only one you work with, correct? Okay. And
yes.
for everyone listening, y'all know that I work with Minerva, who is also the same goddess. It is her Roman name. So for some people, she asks to go by Athena. For me personally, she said, my name's Minerva. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm obsessed with Harry Potter, or maybe it's just like you got too many Greek people, like give me my Roman name. I don't know, but that's what she went by. So y'all have seen her. She hangs out here right behind me. Um, she's got a couple of things on mine. I don't have a whole lot for her, mostly because what she really wants is apparently illegal. Um, she wants me to give her an owl skull, which you can't legally buy apparently. Uh,
Huh. Not even
no,
on
I'm
Amazon.
I'm sure I could get like a mold or a sculpture of one, but I'm not sure if she would accept that. So apparently, I'm on the hunt. I've been on the hunt for one in the wild, but you can't legally sell them apparently. But she does have a candle, and I found some deer antler out at school once. So she gets those, and she has to share them though. She shares with Yemaya, and they're fine with that.
Is the
Do
candle
owls have
owl
a
scented?
scent? Uh,
I don't know.
no, it's called balance. Is the scent? If
Fair enough.
Yeah.
You mentioned Minerva. My grandfather has been going to Cabo San
Hmm.
Lucas, Mexico for over 40 years now. And ever since he's gone to a certain bait and tackle shop, whether he knows about it, a coincidence or not. It's called Minerva's, and it's where he goes to get all the stuff to prepare for his fishing trips and stuff. And I
Right.
was one of those first coincidences. I was like,
Right.
that's odd.
Yeah, that sounds like a sign to me. Um, yeah, but that's what she asked me to go call her. How long have you been how long have you been working with Athena and how long have you been practicing? I'm not sure if those are the same length.
Kind of since maybe a year or 6 months into
Okay.
joining the server, so probably about 2 years
Right.
or so,
Okay.
not too
And
long.
you did both at the same time, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And what's it like? Like witchcraft in general really tends to be like a female centric thing. Like it's very woman
hmm
empowering. What's it feel like to be a male in that culture?
It
Hmm.
can't help but kind of feel like an outsider, I suppose. I'm not too active in the server anyway, but I've also been really busy with life and going back to school and all that, which is another thing of keeping Athena in mind
Yeah.
about trying to work on my studies with things like that and move on. I start
Yay.
work
I'm so
again on
proud of
Monday,
you.
which I'm looking forward to. It's been a little
Um,
while.
so can you kind of like dive into that a little bit more? Like what do you mean by feeling like an outsider and like what are some of your perspectives and stuff?
Well, it's there's still a lot of what I do is just very private. Like my
Hmm.
family doesn't isn't aware of much of it or anything like that. And
Right.
I'm already a reserved person overall, and it's still something that I just kind of do individually, really, not really discussing in a group unless I have questions and things like
Yeah,
that to
yeah. I
interact with
know
or stories or
in our
things like that.
coven you're not very vocal unless you have like a specific thing to share. Like which I mean to be fair, it's been pretty quiet in
Mhm.
there recently. But that's okay. Yeah. Um do you ever feel like I don't know. Well, let's start with do you ever get on like the witchcraft socials like witch talk and stuff? Do you get on any of that? No? Well, I mean, to be
No,
fair, if witch
I'm not
talk
aware of any of
can
those.
be sketchy, sometimes not. Oh, dinner's ready? Okay, I'll be out in a little
Hmm.
bit. Sorry. um not everything on witch talk is very helpful. And there is a lot of cultural
hmm
appropriation within those practices, like a lot of closed practices being shared that are as not closed. But um, sometimes they're just fun to watch. And so, like, I watch them and I notice there's like, I mean, like I said, it's a very female centric practice. It's very woman heavy, woman empowering, and so women
hmm
tend to move toward it. And so I didn't know if like if you're watching those videos like and you don't feel represented as often, like I'm curious how that affects you and your craft and your practice.
I don't take offense to not really feeling represented and things like that because I'm not blind to it being a male dominated world. I'm not going to be overly upset with not
That's
being
fair.
recognized in one certain area. It's going to be okay. So I'm very private with a lot of the things that I do, and
Hmm.
mostly I do offer prayers and things like that, but it's just kind of keeping them in your heart and your mind, like when I'm working on a project or studying for school or classes, things like that.
Hmm.
Looking for inspiration if I'm trying
So
to make a
you
gift for
have a lot of
someone,
intention in what you in the
that kind of
things that
thing.
you do, but you don't really like speak them out loud. You don't really share
hmm
that with people. Okay, that's cool. Um, and
Not
being
really.
within our social group, you you are the only man at this point, right? Yeah, there used to be another, but he kind of drifted
I think
away.
so.
So I think at this point it's just you. Um, and I and like you said, we are in a very male dominated world, and I think that's part of why women drift to this practice so much. Um, But I do love that you're always very empowering to everybody as well. Um, so being that you are so reserved in your practice, are there like ever times where you're like you find certain spells or certain practices or prayers more difficult because you're not sharing with others, or because, or like times where maybe that you need extra energy and you don't have anybody to ask for that? Like, do you ever feel that way?
There are times when I'm working on a project. When you do something like crocheting, 90% of the things you get people asking you to make stuff.
Hmm.
And a lot of the time, I do it for me because it helps me relax and unwind a little bit. And you don't
Hmm.
always kind of have that source of genuine inspiration to make something. And it can be very frustrating when you get all your family members and coworkers like, "Oh, I'll give you $20 to make this, you know, bee or something." I'm like, okay, it takes me a lot of time to make this. It's not really worth the $20. Plus, I don't often think what I make is that good enough to sell anyway. But there are times when, like, genuinely, like this, for example, I wanted something else to hold my crochet hooks, and it just kind of struck me of let's let's make this. It's just kind of genuine inspiration and kind of let you work through it
That's
rather
that's
quickly,
awesome.
and I like it a lot. It's one of the few things I've made for myself. But it's a difference between you kind of feel like something's guiding you more than, okay, I
Yeah,
just need
I
to
get that.
fulfill this request to make this
I
family
do.
member
I
happy.
don't. I don't have that so
But
much anymore. I feel like when I had more personal free time, I had stuff situations like that. Not with crocheting. I can't crochet. But yeah, I get the not wanting to do it because like with my cricket, for example, people are like, "Oh, let me pay you to do something for my birthday party." And I'm like, I don't really want to, but okay, like because cricket material, similar to crocheting, cricket material is very expensive. And so when they're like, "I'll give you $30," I'm like, "Wow, you didn't even cover the cost of the paper."
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and crocheting is two hobbies. It's crocheting and yarn collecting. Um,
Oh my
Two
goodness.
separate important hobbies. I actually have a whole shelf right here of just yarn that I haven't touched, and I haven't bought any of it. Luckily, it was a gift from my grandfather. Had some
That's
friends who,
awesome.
unfortunately, are too arthritic to
Yeah, my
continue
sister
crocheting,
has
and they're like, "Do you
ADHD
want
and
this?" I'm like,
recently got into
"Free stuff?
crocheting. So
Yes."
we've got
So
my people with ADHD have a tendency to get like hyper focused into one specific hobby. They collect all the things they need for that hobby and then they don't care about the hobby anymore. So,
yeah,
yeah. So right now her hyper focus is
and you have more
crocheting. It was
lopsided pot
painting
holders than you know
shoes
what to
like
do with, and
2
it's
months
just a whole
ago.
thing.
No, painting on shoes. Yeah, she collected a
So,
bunch
do
of
you
white
mean
shoes,
painting
started
pictures
painting
of
on
shoes
them,
or
and so
painting on shoes?
yeah.
Okay.
It's living with ADHD. Yeah, it is what it is, but um I had a thought and it went poof. Uh it was a long whatever. My whatever. um yeah, yeah. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. Ow!
Happens a lot.
I just scratched my new tattoo. Yeah. No, that hurt. I remember what I was gonna say though. You
Ooh,
mentioned that you
that's
don't
no
feel like
fun.
your
Been there.
stuff is good enough to sell, which, by the way, is not true. Kyle made my son when my son was first born, made him a beautiful, yes, a beautiful green and blue baby blanket, and it is adorable, and it is still in his
I
room.
did make the baby
And
blanket.
stop
Yeah.
being hard on yourself. Oh yeah, I think you told me that.
I actually have to make a third baby blanket
Mm.
because my oldest brother's
Well,
gonna have a second
I am
kid.
sure
So I
that
need to get on
she
that,
would
but
also
I'm
say,
procrastinating a little
stop
bit.
being hard on yourself because you're very good at it. Um, but what do you get? going back to Athena, what do you find like most difficult and like most empowering about working with her? Let's go there.
Hmm. Most difficult. Um, I think a lot of it is the pressure I put on myself to succeed in things like education and things like that. I just went back to school to take some
Yay.
classes missing to get into the PA program. I did manage to get all A's in my 5 courses that I was missing, which was a pain in the butt, but I got there. I didn't work during this few months except for spring break, um, so it'll be nice to make money again. Um, kind of you get that feeling of not wanting to let family members down, and then now you have something that you're like, oh, I want to make this deity proud and things like that. So that kind of in the back of your mind kind of
Okay.
thing. But
I like that.
it's nice
I
to
definitely
know that there's
understand the
two
pressure
sides to
to
wisdom and
succeed. I also went
craft
back
and
to
things like
school,
that.
which Kyle, you know. Um, but yeah, so I also went back to school and I'm in my master's program and I have like this goal of never getting anything lower than a B in a course. Um, and it's very difficult right now because
Hmm.
my students are in the middle of state testing. Like we literally start state testing next week. And so I have this pressure at work to get my students to pass.
Hmm.
And then I have roller derby practice. And then I am also trying to keep up with my classwork. And like it's very high pressure right now. Because I want to keep doing I want to keep doing A work, which is what I've been doing. I've only got one class where I finished even with a B. Um, and everything else I've had an A minus or above, and so I want to keep that up. But when the pressure at work is so heavy to get my kids to
Hmm.
pass, it's really hard to remember that I also need to pass. Who?
Yeah, I
Oh, you
remember
never told me her
those
name.
days with
And
when Sydney was still teaching around that time of the year, and like how
mm,
it just it's a mess towards the end of the year. My ex-wife. Oh yeah, she was a teacher as well. She taught music, but so I'm fully aware of all the different like the end of the year is a mess. And then my mom was a teacher as well, so I've seen her go through it 1,000 times of, oh, I need my students to do this and
oof,
this.
that's
And I feel really
that's
bad for
always
my
so hard
anatomy
when
professor
I
that I
look at
had
my
this
kids'
semester. The
test scores
final,
and
the
their
class average
average
was a
is like so
52,
low. I'm just like,
and
oh
that's with
God, where did
10%
I
of our
go wrong?
grade.
Because I always put it on myself, like, what did I do wrong? Um, and I think that goes back to the I need to succeed. Um, so
Yeah.
it's difficult. I definitely feel
Hmm.
that pressure. Um, but I think like the motivation to go back to school, I think definitely came from her though as well. Yeah. Um, would you ever want to or consider opening your practice to other deities or other
Hmm.
entities? Okay. Have you ever like felt a call or felt a pull or
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be up for it.
bees like the bug? Like
Um,
okay.
it's a little funny. I've been noticing a lot of bee signs lately. Just
Oh.
yeah, the all over the place and different, just popping up a lot, which is funny because bees are a symbol of
Yeah,
Charon,
for
and
if
that
for our
just
role play
happens to be
server,
the
that's who you
username that I
play.
go by. And I was like,
Which I mean, to be fair, a
this
lot of
is
us
a
ended up
little
working
odd,
with the people
but
that we play, or
yeah,
the beings that we play.
yeah,
I mean, that's cool. So, are
yeah.
you planning to like start trying to
I've got
work with him, or are you
plenty of
waiting?
coins
Like,
for the crossing,
what's
so
your plan
I
there?
guess he wants those. So we'll see. Maybe waiting a little bit more. I also
Hmm.
looked into a little bit of there are obols that were the coins specifically used for burials for
Right.
Charon and things like that. And I'm looking at trying to buy one of those. I only buy a coin maybe once or twice a year because they can be kind of expensive considering they're very old. But a lot of people think about like you'll see a penny on the side of the road. We've only been making coins for less than like a little over 250 years. The Roman and Greek Empire were making coins for 1700 years, so they've
Do
got
you ever think
a
it like
lot of coins that they'll
I'm
bury in the
always curious
ground and
about people
forget
who buy
about,
those coins,
redig
especially the
them up,
opals
and
that are used in
sell them off
death.
to strange people that
Do you
live
think there's a
very far
soul
away.
attached? Or do you think because they've already crossed the sticks like I'm curious if like how do we know that they didn't
I hope not. I hope
like
they're not attached.
get
I'd feel
stuck
bad to
on
be
the
like,
other
oh, I'm just
side
gonna
and
put
just
you in
get
a box now.
I don't know. I don't know.
Hmm. I like thinking about the history of the coins that I have. Like, for all I know, I mean, this coin was minted between 404 and 440 BC. Like, what was this used to buy? Was this someone buying food or sell? Like, there's so much that could have gone on in this coin's life, just the amount of history that it's seen. Was it an offering? Was it payment for someone's
Right.
services? Like, there's a lot in there. And one of the coins I have is has I collect the bad and good emperors of Rome because I think that's more interesting. And one of the coins, there was an emperor, I'm blanking on his name. He spent so much money that they put less silver in the coin, so it weighs less. And that was often used to find a
Oh,
forgery as if it didn't weigh
okay
as much, but
then.
historically his
I
coins weighed less.
didn't like
And
what you
some guy in
said,
England
so
wrote a
I'm just
play
gonna
making fun
kill
of him.
you. That's
So he took his
awesome.
army and
Um,
slaughtered them.
not to get away from your coins, but honestly, I don't
Yeah,
have
you
a
don't make
lot that I know about
jokes about
them.
certain people.
If you want to keep talking about it, go for it.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm curious. What is your favorite story of Athena?
it's fine. No, no, it's fine.
Hmm. Okay. Okay.
Well, two of my
Hmm.
favorite characters in myth and legend are Daedalus and Odysseus, and
Love
they were
that.
both
Love that.
favored by Athena. And it's even Daedalus was the name I went by. I picked it in Latin class, and they got tattooed on my arm here in Greek.
Odysseus
So,
is Odyssei. Oh yeah.
and Odysseus was the other name I was considering going by, but I think
I
someone else picked
love
that in the
that.
class, and I didn't want two
I
Odysseus.
love that reference.
Odyssei. Um, yeah, a lot of yeses. That might be
I just love the reference.
one of
Thank
my
you so much.
favorite
That made me
jokes in
happy.
that. Like, there's a lot of great stuff, and it's
No,
the
do it.
masculine ending in
That's
Latin
literally
names,
who
so that's
you
why they
are.
all end
Like
in us. Um,
it's really weird that you haven't made a
I'm
joke
gonna make
until just
references.
now.
I can't
Like
help it. I'm really trying not to make
you
too many
did. You
jokes,
did.
and it might kill
All
me.
right, go ahead. Sorry.
It is, and it's been really hard. Well, I mentioned the owl candle, but yeah. uh, But I
Facts.
love the story of Odysseus. He's also one of the few characters who's not directly a demigod or an asshole in ancient Greek. A lot of people were pretty horrible people. Like Theseus, for example, was he slew the Minotaur, but his father said, "Hey, if you sail the ship back, if you have a black sail, I'll see it from the Acropolis, and I'll know that you died. If you have a white sail, I'll
I
know
mean,
that you live."
I knew that, but
Well,
I knew
Theseus
it, but I
sailed
just
back
it's
intentionally
still
with a black
awful.
sail so that his father saw it and then killed himself so he could be the next king. So, yeah, it's a lot of messed up stuff.
Yeah.
So I really admire Odysseus for um, doing he's a brilliant tactician and things like that. He came up with a Trojan
Right.
horse, and the fact that he's just wanting
I'm
to get back
curious
home
because
to
one
his
of my
family,
favorites is Medusa,
and
but
because he
I'm a
made the
bisexual
gods
woman. Maybe
angry, it
that's
took
why.
him an extra 10 years after the 10-year war to
um,
do it.
sorry. There's a joke that like bisexuals all have a tattoo of Medusa. Um, this is,
Hmm.
I guess if you're not a bi woman, you wouldn't understand the joke. Anyway, so I really like Medusa. I'm curious, what's your perspective on that story specifically? Because there are different versions of why and what happened. So I'm curious about your perspective on that.
Hmm. I'm always more in favor of the one that she was assaulted by
Awful.
Poseidon in the temple
Yeah.
and prayed that it never happened again, and she was turned into this powerful but
Mm-hmm.
terrifying Gorgon. Um, Makes Athena sound less
Correct.
awful, yeah. And then I still have mixed feelings
Ariadne
on the
doesn't. I guess it.
story of Ariadne,
Okay. Yeah.
or no, sorry,
Um.
Arachne. Ariadne is the
Yeah. I don't know
Theseus's
if I
thread.
remember Arachne's story.
So many similar names that sound like spiders. It's that's why we get it's why we get arachnids. But so the gist of it was Arachne was a famous or very popular woman who could work with a loom and make beautiful creations. And if I
I
remember,
do
she
remember
challenged or
this.
was challenged by Athena to make something, and the people voted that um, Arachne won. And
I do
Athena, in
remember
a kind of
that.
fit of rage, bludgeoned her
I
with the
do now.
loom.
Um.
And I think
Yeah. I
feeling
don't know how
pity
I feel
for
about that
her,
one.
turned her into a
I
spider
do agree
so
with
that
you
she can continue making
about the
her crafts and
changing
work.
Medusa to a Gorgon as a self defense. I definitely prefer that version of the story, whether it's the original or not.
Yeah,
I want to believe that that was the
Medusa.
reason, like, because who was that? I
I think it's
cannot.
funny is that it's also happened twice in
I don't
stories with
remember that.
Poseidon assaulting someone. There's another woman who's like, I prayed, I
That's
never
true.
want this
I
to
mean,
happen
Daphne
again.
got turned into a
So she
tree
got
to
turned into a
avoid
man.
being to
I'm
avoid.
like, for the life of me,
That's
I'm blanking on
that's
it.
such a
I'm
sad
sure I could
story.
look it up eventually, but we've translated so many stories, they start to blur at some point.
No.
Yeah, that was a
Okay.
beautiful story to translate. Um, it is very sad.
Okay.
So in Latin poetry, they have things that we don't have in English called word pictures. The order of words doesn't matter in Latin. You could have mix it kind of like Yoda talking. It somehow just makes sense if you swap them around. It's the endings of the words that define what's going on in the sentence. So one of the first things that we learned was Cornelia et Flavia ambulant in agris, and if you translated it literally, it's Cornelia and Flavia walk in the fields, but you could swap it any way around. You could say ambulant Cornelia et Flavia in agris, and you could swap it all around. It still makes sense. So in poetry, and it was Ovid that was very popular for doing this. He would take the words
Oh, that's
as you read about
beautiful.
her being turned into the tree. The word for like her breast,
That
chest, and heart
doesn't
would
come
be in the
across in
center,
English.
and on both sides would be the words for bark enveloping. So you literally see the bark wrapping around her in the sentence and things like that. He did that a lot in his poetry. Um,
That's
no, we
that's
can't. We
so
don't have things like that.
cool.
There's one of his stories is about
That's
a
just
dog chasing a
and
rabbit, and as
dang,
this
Latin's
story
awesome
goes
now.
on, the
I
words
mean,
for
not that it
dog and
wasn't
rabbit
before.
get closer
I
and
just don't know
closer
anything about it.
as the dog's chasing the
Spread the
rabbit in the
word.
story.
Keep Latin
Like we
alive.
can't do that in English. Yeah,
That I knew.
and he spread the word. Um, so um, Shakespeare wrote in iambic pentameter, and Ovid wrote in something called dactylic hexameter, and it is very complicated. But even in the lines describing, we have the word picture and everything.
That's so
There's
cool.
different beats that the poem has to follow. There's spondys and dactyls, and I'm gonna get them mixed up.
See,
But the part
I
for the heart
love
turning
I
into it,
love
it's
these
the
poems
beat
and
of a
these
heart
stories, but
follows the
yeah, when
rhythm,
they're not
and
in
that's
their
part of the
original
story as
language,
well.
you lose all of that,
So
and that
it's just
so
like he has
I
to know the
never
right
knew
word that
that.
has the
That's
right
so
number of
cool.
syllables. It's crazy.
So I mean, awesome. Thanks for teaching me something. Um, I don't. Why? Mm,
Yeah,
facts.
I always like the saying that all translators are traitors,
That's awesome.
because just because you
Um,
can translate it, but only so
so
much.
is there anything
There's
like
always something left behind, and it betrays
I
the
guess
original
that
language a bit.
you find
For the life of me, I can't remember where I heard that either.
important
But
to your
something
practice or
stuck.
something special about your practice that you would like to share with with our listeners, because I mean, like you did say, you're very closed with your practice, and that's totally fine. I'm just curious if there's anything that you do want to share or discuss.
Hmm. Nothing really comes to mind, unfortunately. The only thing I would share is try not to beat yourself up too much about everything. There's a certain level. I'm working on it myself. I'm not perfect by any means. There's just like a level of, I don't know if shame's the right word, or disbelief of just like,
I
this
get that.
is like, I come from a background of
If
science and
there
all that,
was
and there are definitely things that I've
if there was a
seen
young
and
person,
that you
male or
cannot
female, but
explain, and
since we're getting the male
it's
perspective, especially
tough to
thinking
wrap your
about
head
like
around and
young men
reconcile those
who
parts of
were,
me.
or even older men,
But
but somebody who is new to this lifestyle, this practice, like what advice would you get that and give them for joining, and specifically for young men, like how would you encourage them to join this belief system where, unlike the rest of the world where men are the dominant, like women tend to be the dominant in this, how would you encourage them?
I would suggest finding the right community that you feel like you could fit in and belong in, even if you're not active all the time. Something that you can pop in and out as needed for your own experiences and things like that. Kind of
Yeah.
like ours
and
here, because
and I would say
I
personally, like, correct me
am
if I say anything that you don't
open
agree
enough to
with, but
confide
I
in
would
the
say it's
members
also
there and
important to
take advice
know
as
that
needed and things like that.
even though
And
this is
it's nice to have
a
people to
female
rely on
dominant
and that kind of thing.
belief system and practice, like in community, it still needs it's still heavily focused in equality, and keeping in mind that, like, if you're joining, let's say, a coven that, or a community that is like, oh, you're a man, so you're not as welcome, or you get less privileges, like that's not the right community. Like we definitely don't have that in our coven at all, like, and it shouldn't be that way. Yeah. I think, and I don't know, I think there
Mm.
are certain covens, certain groups that specifically do
I
not
think
give
that's a good point.
privileges to their male um members, and I think I find a lot of problems with that. Mhm. Yeah.
I feel very fortunate
Yeah,
in
and
that
I
I
do
kind of
too. I
stumbled
I
into it,
definitely think
that
our
I already
community
had
is a
friends
very
and that I
healthy,
trusted that
very
just
healthy
gave me
one
the
that, like,
invitation,
definitely
and I was
supports
like,
each other.
sure,
And
I'll join this, see
I
what this
think
is about.
I
I
think it
didn't
was me
have
who
to
said, like, let's
struggle to
let's
find the right
create this
community. I feel very
online
lucky in
coven,
that
because I
aspect.
didn't have anybody around where I was, and I definitely think it's been beneficial to my practice. And I love that we've made you feel comfortable enough to join us as well. Yay. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it would have been. I'm 100% sure if Nyx had been here, we would have been much louder.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, she invited me here.
Have you
Now
read her
just
new book?
doing
Have
what I
you
can,
ordered?
filling in for people.
She is she did offer for us, within the group, to, if we cash app her the money, we
Probably.
get autograph copies. Yeah.
I have
So I
not.
I
I have
that's what
not.
I
I
did.
heard it got.
Again,
I have
for
not done
those of
that
you
either.
listening, go order her
But
book. on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, I think, are the places you can get it.
Oh, that's good.
Yes. So go do that. Um,
I might have to do that.
honestly, like I don't really have anything else. Uh, I do
I
have
think it's on
dinner. I
Amazon.
have dinner. Do you have anything else to share? It's a little blurry, but sometimes, honestly, sometimes though, while
You
I'm
got dinner?
recording, it's pixelated, and then when I go back and like publish it, the
No, I
pixelation
think
goes
that's
away.
about
So
it.
it
Like
might
I
not be
just
blurry when
realized that
we
in
watch
frame
it.
right
But
there is my little Cerberus plush. So,
did you did you
yeah.
crochet? Is that crocheted? I can't really tell. Oh, that's Hades. Yeah.
Who knows? There's just all kinds of nerdy crap behind me as
I
well that people are
am
like, "What is
I
that?"
play it casually. I do
No, oh,
not like
absolutely
I
not.
am
I
not the
have
kind of
crocheted a
gamer
Cerberus
that's like I
actually,
have to beat this game.
but that was
I'm the
from
kind of
the
gamer that
game
like if I
that
have if I
Hades.
have,
The
10,
sequel just
20,
came out
30
in
minutes
early
and
access that I've played
I'll
the
sit down
crap out of. It's
and
so
I'll
much
play,
fun.
but if I don't get very far, like I'm not crushed because I just don't have that kind of
Hmm.
time or energy or focus. So when it comes to that game, I
Hmm.
am still very, very early in the game. Even though I've technically been playing it for several months, I only play it for like 40 minutes at a time. And yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and the fact that you have to go back to the beginning every time makes it really hard.
Hmm.
Yeah. I've
Yeah, that's you can
gotten
only do a couple runs if
to
that
how
in
far
that
have I
time.
gotten? I think I've gotten to the boss of the first level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least you
I
could
can't
like
that's where I'm
buy things
stuck. I
that make
can't
you
get
get
past the
stronger in
Furies.
the end, and
That's where I'm
it's not just a
stuck.
complete soul crusher.
So,
It's,
um if you have not played Hades, it's a very good game. However, so good.
that's the
However, if you
Furies
are the kind of gamer
continue to
that
fight
gets
Megara.
very frustrated when you can't move forward, this is not the game for you.
Yeah. The voice acting is also phenomenal. There is an option. You could turn on
I didn't
God
know that was an
mode,
option. I should
where
go
every
back and
time you
I could have
die,
turned that
you get
on. I
a
didn't know that.
buff. So you take
Well,
two
I
percent
mean, I'm
less
not as
damage, so
worried
that you
about it
can
either though.
finish
So
the game
like
in the
if I
story.
don't
The
if I
developers
don't
didn't
get
want
that
to
far, I don't
gatekeep
get that
people
far.
who
Like
aren't as
it's
competitive
just
or who
fun to
have
play
jobs
casually.
and kids that are like,
Um
sometimes I want to play
but
a video
yeah, I
game
do
and feel
have
like a freaking
I
god
have talked to
and not
people who
worry
hated the
about
game
the
because
other
they
stuff.
couldn't
So,
they hated that they had to keep
yep.
going back to the beginning. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's awesome. I'm stuck at the Furies. I can't get past them. Um, but I mean, oh well. I will tell you though, my favorite part of the game is when I get sent back to the beginning and then I give
Yep.
Cerberus head
I recently
stitches.
got Tisiphone addicted
That's
to it,
my
and she's
favorite.
sending me
Like
updates. She's like, I got this far, I got this far. I'm like, good, keep going.
exactly, exactly. What? Oh.
Oh, absolutely, you have to. You can't do the
Oh,
next
that's
run without
cool.
petting the
I
dog.
didn't
In the sequel, it's a
That's so
frog you get
cool.
to
I
pet
didn't know there
instead
was
of
a sequel.
Cerberus.
What's it called?
And this the sequel. You play as Zagreus' sister, and she has
Well,
a
that would be
frog.
why I didn't know
It's
it
witch
existed.
based actually. Your Hecate is your
Okay.
kind of
Well, I'm gonna
guiding god
wait
in the game and
and buy
teaches you
it when it's
magic and
not
stuff.
brand
And
new
your
because
familiar is this adorable frog.
usually they're more expensive then.
It came out three Hades 2.
That's not
It
bad.
came out like 3 days ago in early access.
Yeah, I'm also
Yes, it is brand
I'm
new.
not as far into the first one anyway, so yeah. I
Fair
mean,
enough.
it's all Greek myth. I don't think I would be, but
It's about
I
$30, I
I
believe,
feel
right
like I
now, which
don't
isn't
really
too
need it yet
terrible.
since I'm not that far into the
But it's
first game.
still got some rough
But it's
edges.
good
Some
to know that
character
there's a
models aren't
second.
in yet, but overall the story is there.
Yeah.
No, you'd be like, "What's going on? Who's this?" Well, probably not.
So you're hyped. I get it. No, no, not no, no.
Mm-hmm. And you,
I'm very happy.
yes, and
I'm not
like
guilting you.
Achilles
You're
helped you
guilting
in the first
yourself.
game. He was kind of your mentor. In the second one, it's Odysseus. So I'm like, yeah,
I'll
it's
I'll
my
be
guy.
honest. We don't get a lot of comments.
Yes, I am. I definitely haven't put 24 hours
Yeah,
in to the game in three
it's all
days.
it's
No,
all
I have
gonna
not.
be your fault.
I'm on vacation. I go back to work Monday. I'm enjoying
Well,
stuff. Don't guilt
yeah.
me.
Thanks for letting me know that there's another game. I didn't know
That's
that.
for the comments that are gonna be like,
And I
God,
didn't
get a
know it was
life,
even
guy.
coming out. But I
Well,
forgot what
you
I was
are
gonna
now
say.
because you got some pale redheaded guys just spouting
Okay,
nonsense.
I'm gonna go
So
eat. Hey, we made it to 40 minutes. That's pretty good. For
yeah,
for not having Nyx shoot shit at us the whole time. That's pretty impressive. I don't talk this much on my own usually. How do you go hold?
probably you're gonna go eat.
Hmm.
We did.
So you're like teenagers on the
That's true.
phone.
I I don't know if I've spoken
I
today.
I talk to my mom on the phone all the
No, I
time.
must have. My I was playing a game earlier with my friend Merlin, so we chat a bit, and it's pretty funny because we're both kind of quiet people, and we're just like,
That's so sweet.
"Are you still there?" Oh, okay, yeah. I hate
That's
talking on the
funny.
phone.
I love that.
I don't know why. I hate
Well,
it.
thank you for joining us and thank you for giving us your perspective. I think we're
Yeah.
going to be
My
doing like
grandfather will call me, and it's like a
a
2 minute
couple of
conversation just to
guests
update.
in the
You know, and he
coming
always says I love you
episodes.
at the end, which I
Um,
appreciate. But
I think
like
our next
sometimes when I want
guest
to talk to him more, I'm like,
is
our
June
time is up. Okay,
1st to kick
next
off
time, I guess.
Pride Month. I don't remember our guest's name, but it's one of Autumn's friends.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Anyway, like I said, thanks for joining, and everybody, thanks for listening. I'm gonna go eat. Bye.
Hmm. I'm gonna go play some more games.